Welcome to Stanley's September edition of Facebook Live. I'm Michelle Fleming. I am joined by Tom McFarland and Dan Schmelzer of Lagunitas Brewing. I did. Sometimes I'm really just not good with last names. It's ridiculous. In any event, we're here at Lagunitas Tap Room here in Seattle, which is a really, really lovely place. If you're here in Seattle and haven't been, I highly recommend getting your ass down here.
Beautiful space.
It is a beautiful space. It's very well lit. There's dogs can be allowed in here.
Dogs of all
Children.
sorts.
I mean, if you like drinking with your kids, not not the kids drinking, but if you want to bring your kids down, great space. I've got a crew that comes here on Fridays. The Pilsner crew is what
gang.
Yeah. I mean, it's like they swear. I feel bad, actually, for all of you guys that work here, because they get in here and then they stay here and then they drink all your Pilsner, which I think we're going to be trying today, right?
We are.
Yes. But anyways, we're here to go through the brewing process here at Lagunitas and teach you guys a few things. And I want to introduce Tom. Tell us about yourself.
Tom McFarland. I'm the packaging engineer and also on the research and development team for Stanley. Part of the creative center, we come up with new products, and also I do structural packaging engineering, but helps the product get to you in a safe state.
Yes.
Yeah.
And a beautiful state.
Pristine.
Pristine state. Tell us a little bit about our Ceramivac here.
All right, so
because I know you like drinking beer.
I do enjoy beer. It's pretty good. So our new product line coming out this year. It kind of gives you the experience of drinking out of a ceramic or a glass, but with the durability of stainless steel. The finish, our Ceramivac finish helps you to preserve the flavor of the beer while you're drinking it, so you don't get that stainless steel taste. It really gives you the taste of the beer itself. So
and also keeps it pretty carbonated and cold.
It does. It helps keep your beer carbonated and reduces foam because of the smooth finish. There's less surface pitting, and it keeps that carbonation in the beer while you drink it. And it keeps it really cold too. We got the vacuum insulation, 7 hours cold.
And
That's
look at that
good.
thing,
24
you'll look
hours cold on
super
this
cool
one.
drinking out of it too. All right, let's go on to Dan. Dan, tell us a bit about yourself.
Well, as she mentioned, Dan Schmelzer. I'm the head and only brewer here at the Lagunitas facility in Ballard, which you see behind us, my lovely workstation.
It's very nice.
It is nice.
Yeah.
I have been in the brewing industry about 6 years in various different capacities, starting as a bartender and working my way up, and here we are. I get to develop my own creative ales and lagers for the local Seattle market.
That is so cool. I'm so excited to find out more about this because I know that you've got a lot to say.
I know too much about it.
You know too much. But before we get all up into this, we've got things to talk about. First of all, you have the opportunity to win a Ceramivac Growler gift set that you see here and a Lagunitas Brewing Company t-shirt here.
Ooh.
All you have to do is share this Facebook Live to enter and have a chance to win. Also, pay attention to what this man has to say because we have a trivia question at the end for another chance to win a Growler gift set and this lovely t-shirt here. Just enter your answer in the comments and we will pick a winner afterwards. So again, pay attention. I mean, there's a lot he's going to talk about. So, lastly, Farm to Keg 30 for 30% off all of our Stanley products on stanley-pmi.com. Runs through Sunday. I mean, you can go crazy. Like, get all your stuff. Like, I mean, if you're going to tailgate, buy it all right now. There's tons of stuff for that. So, anyways, I'm going to continue on. Dan, tell us about the brewing process.
All right. Well, I'm going to try to keep this as concise as possible. So if I do get long-winded, please cut me off. So, as anybody that has done any home brewing or knows anybody that's brewed or taken any brewery tours, this is kind of the classic, the four ingredients, right? Water, malt, hops, and yeast. Depending on styles and all that, but that is the four main ingredients that make up beer. Water, when used in the brewing process, is referred to as liquor. So at the very first stage of the process here, we have our mash, what's called our mash and lauter tun. The first stage of the process is we're going to take our malted barley, which I have the luxury in this lovely region of the United States. We have local maltsters, and we also have one of the largest hop growing regions in the world, about 2 hours from here in Yakima Valley.
Yakima Valley
so
hops,
I can exactly. So I have the capability of driving just about 2 hours away. I can pick up fresh hops, especially now during harvest season. We go and pick up fresh hops, bring it back, and it's literally from off the vine into our into the beer with less than 24 hours, even less than 12 hours in most situations. So
Thus, farm to cake.
exactly
Right?
yes, and I do have that ability to get to know our hop farmers, our malt farmers, our maltsters, that are creating all these raw ingredients that go into the beers, which is super great. And we get to not every part of the country gets to have that opportunity, so it's really unique to this region. So that being said, the first part of the process is the mashing process. So we are going to throw our malted barley or whatever grain we might be using. Majority of the time it's malted barley, in addition to other things as well. But for the most part, it's all malted barley that gets hydrated with, again, our liquor, right? So with just water, but it is now liquor for the brewing process. So we mix those together and we do our mash rest. So at a certain temperature, we have different organisms, beta and alpha amylase to be specific. We have those to break down our starches, convert them into sugars. So that starch in the grain gets converted into sugar through hydration and through temperature. And so that is what creates the food for our yeast later on in the process. So after that conversion is complete, what's called watering, which is just a fancy term for filtering, essentially. So we are going to leave all that grain behind in the water tun, and then just filter that liquor, which is now wort, because it's now wort, right? W-O-R-T. So that becomes the basis for fermentation, right? So that's the original state that the beer is in. So once those starches turn into sugar, then we leave the grain behind and we filter off that liquor, which is now wort, and that's going to go into our kettle. The kettle comes up to a boil, and that is used to sterilize wort. It's also used for our hopping. So we are converting our alpha acids in our hops into bittering compounds that we perceive as bitterness. So that's where the bitterness in beer comes from. And it also creates the color of our wort. So that's going to...
Wort.
Wort up.
Wort.
Wort
You
up.
guys should have a T-shirt that says that. Wort
That would be cool.
That would be a good one.
So now in the boiling process, right, we've already added our hops. We can, in the beginning stages, we add our bittering hops because they get exposed to heat longest, right? So then those are converted into bittering compounds. And then we add our flavor and aroma hops later on in the boil because since they're not exposed to the heat as long, you don't get as much bitterness. You just get that really nice fresh aroma and character from the hops.
It's like some spice at the end.
Exactly.
Yeah, don't want to over spice in the beginning.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Too much salt in the beginning is no bueno, right?
No.
So if you add that in the later process, you can just adjust it later, and it gives you a different character out of what you're using. So at that point, we're done with our boil. We're going to start our whirlpool process because part of that, adding all those hops, those are all just floating around in the wort, right? And there's also these proteins that are coagulate in the kettle through just natural, through heat, and also through some things that we can add to it, such as what we use as whirlfloc, which is also correct. It's a kettle coagulant.
Whoa.
So it coagulates proteins into larger bundles, and then those get to drop out of solution, right? So they don't end up in the finished product.
Okay.
So that's the action of the whirlpool is going to suck all those particulates to the center in the bottom, so that way I can just draw a nice clean wort out into the fermenter for the yeast.
Okay.
So it leaves all the proteins behind. Essentially, that's the purpose of the whirlpool.
Okay,
right?
to get the proteins out.
To get the proteins and any sort of hop matter and any sort of particulates that might be in that kettle.
Cool.
I wonder if there would ever be a protein beer if you did that. I mean, would that work?
Well, there's
there people who do
High
that?
protein beer.
High protein
Muscle beer.
like for you bicyclists.
Yeah.
And
there is a
things?
good amount of protein in beer actually, and for that does get left behind. There's shorter chain proteins that don't drop out, but there's also, you might be familiar with the trendy hazy IPA.
Oh,
Yes,
yeah.
so many hazy IPAs.
What causes that haze as proteins in wheat and oats. So if
see
you
it.
ever see a cloudier, like a German beer, or for instance a hazy IPA that are trendy now, that is actually protein haze. So
You know what? I'm
I
gonna
was
do
gonna-
this.
I was wondering about that,
depending on
yeah.
the style.
I'm not going
some
to tell
of it
my
does get
husband
through.
this because then he's going to have
That's
another
protein.
excuse.
That's protein.
for drinking more beer.
It's all good to drink.
Right.
Yeah. I'm bodybuilding on this.
Right, exactly.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Don't tell him that.
So post whirlpool, right? We have to. We'll do a little bit about yeast here, right? So we're familiar.
Yeah.
If anyone's ever baked before
Yes.
or
I
used
bake all the time.
any sort of baking bread or using any sort of yeast, you might know that it's a live organism. So in brewing, home brewers a lot of times use a dried yeast. Professional brewing, we use a liquid yeast. So we have to keep that yeast alive and healthy, fed, oxygen. We have to give it food, which is the sugars, which in our case most often is maltose or maltotriose, which you're getting from the malted barley. That's the
Maltotriose.
specific sugar that is converted. So there's with sugar there's dextrose and all that. So this is maltose and maltotriose. So the yeast is going to eat those sugars, and then it converts it into alcohol and carbon dioxide, right? And that's where the alcohol comes from.
And the carbonation as well.
It can.
Or is that
Tradi-
post? That happens after.
Traditionally,
Yeah.
in brewing, pre, tanks of CO2, yes, it was.
Yes.
That
Yeah.
CO2 would stay in solution, and they would bung up the barrel, and it would create a certain amount of carbonation. Whereas nowadays, the majority of people, unless you're doing cask conditioning, the majority of us, we force carbonate with CO2
Very
after
cool.
the process.
Very cool.
Right. So that's the last stage of the process. But so that yeast needs to stay at a good temperature, right? So it needs to, if we get too hot or too cold, we don't perform ideally in our workspace, right?
Right.
So we need to get that yeast the sugars, right, from the wort. We need to give it oxygen, which we give. So we're at this point post whirlpool.
Okay.
We're coming out of our heat exchanger.
Yeah.
Right. So that's turning our wort that's 200 degrees or so, even more, sometimes a little less, depending on the process. You need to get that. If you just throw that into some yeast, they're going to be just screaming hot. They're all going to be
Yeah.
like, "Oh, I thought we were partying," and then they're just they're done.
Then they're dying.
That's it.
Right.
Too hot.
Die.
Right.
Too hot to try.
That's
Heat
right.
kills yeast.
Right.
Yes.
So we need to take that 200 degree wort down to a reasonable temperature, right? So we use a heat exchanger. So really quickly we send cold water backwards through those plates, and as it comes forward it gets cooled down. So it goes from about 200 degrees down to, depending on the beer that you're brewing, usually around 70
Okay.
degrees for ales, for
You
instance.
have like 20 levers over there. You must be like a lever DJ, like going in there and opening and closing, and
Quite
like
literally.
turning
Yeah.
on the pumps
Right.
and like getting
Those
it.
are all my pathways.
That's cool.
There's-
Yeah,
Very
exactly.
cool.
It's just like about this is so fun and complicated
It's
at the
really
same time,
it's really
right?
just a
Yeah.
matter of manipulating some simple ingredients, but
Uh-huh.
it just exponentially gets more detailed the more you go down the rabbit hole.
And you get to
So-
create all of these wonderful
That's
things.
that's right.
So that's awesome.
That's right. Yeah.
And I heard you mentioning earlier that the yeast is like this living thing, and
Mm-hmm.
you're gonna be reusing it. Can you tell us about reusing the yeast?
Absolutely. So most often you just reuse that yeast instead of repitching the same yeast or new yeast over and over again. It's kind of a waste, right? You have to acquire new yeast from usually a yeast bank or things like that. We have to instead of just relying on somebody else to just keep giving you fresh yeast, we reuse the yeast in house. So at a certain point in the process, usually right before dry hopping is when I usually do it, but you can do it at different points in the process. So we do, in order to reuse that yeast, it all falls down into the cone. You've probably seen the fermenters when you go to the tap room or your brewery, whatever, your local brewery.
Yeah.
You'll see the fermenters with the cones in the bottom. That gets all condensed down. So everything that falls out of the beer gets condensed into those cones. And that yeast is the majority of it. So I hook up what's called a yeast brink, which is just a yeast storage vessel that's nice and clean and sanitary. And I what's called harvesting a certain amount of yeast for the next pitch. So I can use that yeast again in the next beer. So it usually goes about 10 to 12 generations before it starts to mutate. So we try to keep it under 12 generations, and we keep an eye on it. I do cell counts every day with the old microscope.
Yeah, so
And,
you have a microscope in the back. That's so
that's
cool.
right.
It's so sciencey.
Yeah.
I know this thing is like I feel like my head explodes when I go through this process. I'm like I miss all kinds of things. So
Yeah.
I want to take a minute here just to remind everybody to share this Facebook Live for your chance to win all the products we talked about here. Ceramivac Growler gift set and this lovely Lagunitas t-shirt that does not include, not this one
Not
on
the-
Dan.
not the one on his
does
back.
not include
No.
Dan.
Yeah.
And
That's
also,
extra.
we've got a trivia question coming up, so I hope you're paying attention because that's another chance to win. And Farm to Keg 30 for 30% off everything, anything on stanley-pmi.com through Sunday. So I think we should try to get into drinking some of this beer.
I think we should. We've gone over the process.
We really
Yeah.
have. So we've got 3 types of beer here, right?
We do.
Okay, so why don't you tell us a little bit about it? We're going to taste this. We're going to taste this for you, and I apologize in advance because I know that you're bummed out watching us drink beer, or you know, try it yourself later on. Okay,
I couldn't help but notice the puff of CO2 that was stored in this nice.
I know this
vacuum
thing is
seal.
like crazy
Yeah,
sealed.
it's got a nice bail lock with our seal that's removable, washable.
I know.
Also a nice detent so you can lock the lid down when you're gonna pour it.
And it'll keep it cold for 24 hours, so you don't have to worry about letting it.
You can toss it in the back of your car. It's not
Yeah.
gonna break. You can have it roll around.
I know, it's
Stainless
awesome.
steel.
Okay, so let's drink this Pilsner that my friends absolutely love. I mean, is this what they drink here?
That's right.
This is the Pilsner Club?
No, yeah,
This is the Pilsner
there's
Club
a
edition
Pilsner
right
Club.
here?
They're crazy. All right, so we're gonna all try Pilsner.
So just as a little side note,
There it is.
there are
Look at how pretty
generally
it is.
two styles of yeast that are used for brewing. There's ale yeast and lager yeast. Ale yeast is going to be top fermenting, so it ferments at the top of the tank, and also a little warmer temperatures. With ales, you're going to get that more esters from the higher fermentation temperatures. Esters are also known as like fruitier. You get more of a full, like fruitier character from your beer. Whereas this is going to be a lager strain, so it's bottom fermenting. It ferments at colder temperatures, and it takes longer to finish the process out. So you'll notice most Pilsners, this is specifically is a Czech-style Pilsner, referring to the region that it stems from. So that it utilizes Czech hops.
Nice.
Very cool.
I
Right?
think we should cheers.
Cheers.
Yeah,
Cheers.
cheers.
Let's try
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
All right.
So you'll notice real clean, crisp, easy drinking, lightly carbonated, really nice. You get a lot of lagers feature the malt as opposed to hops, which most people are familiar. IPAs, right, which is
Yes,
ale. The
yeah.
A in IPA is for ale. So this is going to be a lot cleaner and a lot more of a bread. You get more
Yes,
like
yeah,
bread. You
totally.
get a little toasted bread.
Yeah,
a little
trying to
like English
how do you
muffin
describe
almost.
the malt
English
flavor?
muffin. Okay.
The malt flavor in this, I would say, like I said, I would do like a hint of straw, and you get like really like fresh baked bread a lot of times from a good lager, because you're showcasing that malt that's used as opposed to an IPA or a pale ale that most people are used to in America that are feature hops. So
Okay.
this is a more malt forward style.
Nice. I like it. No wonder those guys like drinking it.
Yeah.
Here, let's go to this one now.
So
Gotta
next
polish this
up
I know.
is one of my creations here for the Ballard locals and Seattle as a whole. This is called the Batch 2.6 IPA. It's featuring all Skagit Valley malt, which is a maltster about an hour and a half north of here that does really great work. And this is all hops from Yakima. So all local hops, malt, and water. And the only thing
Does it
left is
smell
the
nice?
yeast, which
Smells
we
good.
use
Okay.
House Lagunitas Ale yeast.
Well, that's too much of a pour, but yeah.
Well,
What are you gonna do?
you can drink it.
So
You
again,
love
this is going to
beer.
be an ale. So, and a quite hopped ale,
All right. And then the next one.
Smells really hoppy.
right? So we
Yeah.
get, I get a lot of stone fruit from this.
Mm-hmm.
Apricot, peach,
Oh, that's pretty good.
As soon as
Stone
you
fruit.
said that, I was like, yes, that's so
a
true.
little hint of grass. And I get what is referred to in the brewing world as dank.
Oh, jeez.
Dank, very dank.
This is very dank. Yeah.
Some people might
It
say
smells kind of dank.
Right. Some people might say, "Oh, you give an IPA to your buddies, and they're like, oh, it smells like weed."
Yeah.
It's not the common
It's
term
not-
in brewing.
it's-
We refer to that as dank.
I know we are in Washington.
Hops and weed are
but,
from the
you know,
same
Hops and
family?
cannabis are very, very
Yeah.
similar. They're if you go
Skunky.
far enough up, they're both from the Cannabiceae family.
Oh, wow. Learn something new every day.
Maybe it's not the family, the genus, whatever. You get up high
It's on a
enough.
family tree somewhere. It's like an uncle or an aunt.
So we're gonna go with this last one now. You better down that
Okay, I
road.
don't know if I can do
I
that.
mean,
Let's see.
you
I'm
can.
gonna get there.
I know you can. Because, I mean, we are running out of time. Because there's so much to talk about when it comes to beer.
All right.
All right, you ready?
So that was a nice hop forward IPA, right?
I freaking love IPAs.
So this is gonna,
They are
well, you're
so
in a
good.
good spot, part of the country to drink IPAs. So last but not least, this is also an ale. This is a chocolate stout. There's a local chocolatier in Seattle named Theo's. I
Oh,
utilize.
that may, yeah, they're
Theo
awesome. They're
chocolate,
just down
yeah.
the way, too.
They
so-
are.
Fremont, right?
That's right. Mm-hmm. And a little side note. This was brewed for my wife
Aww.
on our 4th wedding anniversary.
That's so nice, you guys.
Love you, babe.
Aw, I love it. Okay, so.
Not there yet. I'm gonna get there. You guys start.
I need it because I'm psyched to
I'm gonna
drink
get
this
there.
right here. All right.
So you'll see the nice
It's very
dark,
chocolatey.
the color difference in these, as you can see, is from different malts,
I
right?
can
So this
smell
is
the
really
cacao.
lightly kiln malts, usually just base malt. This is going to be a little darker in color, a little more caramel, a little more of like a golden kind of, I would call that almost like, orange, gold. So that's the use of specialty malts. And then even more, if you, it's for instance, think of toasting bread, right? If you just toast it if you don't toast it at all, or just for a little bit, comes out lighter, a little darker in the oven, and then even darker. So this is going to have more of a roasted character. It gets you get a little bit of coffee,
And I have
that big
gotta
cocoa
be-
note.
They
from
roast
from
the
exactly.
they roast the malt, so you get
Yeah.
that like kind of a toasted.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's
Right.
yeah.
It is
When
very.
you smell that raw ingredient, that malt, you like get that same kind of a feel from it.
Exactly, right?
It
so,
is
so in this
delicious.
case, it's the use of roasted barley, some chocolate malt that gives it that nice, rich, deep color, dark color, and then you get a ton of that cocoa from the the chocolate.
It's delicious. I love it, for sure. However, I know this is that we are running out of time, y'all. And
already?
Oh, I know this goes so very, very
My
fast. And
gosh.
I like this chocolate one, the best. I think it's my favorite thus far. But I have a trivia question for you guys to answer in the comments for your chance to win. Any water is referred to as what in the brewing process? Any water is referred to, you can't answer, as to what in the brewing process? Leave your answer in the comments and we will get back to you for your chance to win. We are picking one winner for that. So hopefully you paid attention. Again, share this for your chance to win the Growler gift set here and this t-shirt. Farm to Keg 30 through Sunday. Stanley. Everyone for being here. Thank you to Dan and the
My
Lagunitas
pleasure.
family and Tom. You've been so fun, you guys. I've learned so much. Now I'm going to go ahead and drink all this beer. I apologize to you all in advance for not being able to join us afterwards. But October is coffee month. We'll see you next month. Thank you, thank you. Cheers.
Cheers.
Okay,
Cheers.
we're going to drink this now,
Yeah.
yeah? This is really good.